To continue this story, obviously, part of the biological pump is all the consumption and consumption strategies. What does that mean? There are various ways in which the photosynthesized organic matter is consumed by the other heterotrophic organisms. So what are the strategies? Suspension feeding or filter feeding. So things like jellyfish, filters like clams, other things that take water and filter out the organic matter. That's called suspension feeding or filter feeding. Some of the clams that stay at the ocean ridges, for example, they don't move much. They don't move at all. They are attached. They sit. They can get very big, couple of meters tall, and they can keep filtering water, many 100 gallons per day sometimes. And some of them are found to live for a couple of thousand years. Live means they have a cellular system that's working, that's filtering, that's consuming food, they're producing eggs, they're spawning, and so on. So it's alive even though they don't move. So eggs are released, they are fertilized by the sperms, and so on and so forth. So it's an evolution that's meant for just sedentary life, but nonetheless that is filter feeding. Deposit feeding, we will see that many wait for organic matter to settle down to the bottom, and then they feed at the bottom, or they take in the detritus that comes down and extract usable organic matter from the sediment that's mixed up with the organic matter. Okay, carnivorous feeding, of course, is capture and eat other animals. Here are some examples. So there is a cockle sitting buried in the sediment. Could be at the coastal ocean, which is fairly shallow, and it siphons in the water and expels out the water here, so it filters out the organic matter or the hydrocarbons. And here is an amphipod that is buried in the seaweed that's piled above the high tide line. So it is part of the marine life, but it can be in or out of the water. So here is a lugworm that is basically processing sand. It's like earthworms, right? Earthworms are a very critical part of making soil by extracting organic matter and producing nutrients, nutritious soil. They're good for soil health. And there is a sand star which also buries inside. So these are the feeding strategies. And then you have to think about predators and predation. How does that happen? How has it evolved? For example, when we talked about silica shells and calcium carbonate shells of the diatoms and coccolithophores, why did they grow shells? Obviously, if you go back in time, originally there wouldn't have been a shell. Then predators would have evolved. So a strategy to avoid predation was to have a shell that would make it harder for them to chew into you, right? So you can imagine that various predation strategies have evolved, like teeth to bite into the shell, and shells to avoid being bitten and eaten easily, and so on. So motion, shells, ability to hide, colors to avoid predation that we looked at, some fish, and so on and so forth. So trophic level in that is just at what feeding stage you are in. Are you a top predator? Are you in the middle? Or are you in a branch like a food web, and so on? So chemical energy is transferred from producers to consumers. Typical energy efficiency of this transfer is only about 10%. Okay, some go from as low as 5-6% to as high as 20%, but in general, on average, it's only about 10%. So the gross ecological efficiency in this sense is the ratio of the energy passed to the next higher trophic level divided by the energy received from the level below. So a consumer in the middle here is receiving some energy and then being consumed by somebody else, so transferring some chemical energy. So the ratio of the energy that was received consumed at some efficiency and then being transferred to the next level. A lot of it is wasted, digested, mechanical energy, etc., heat, and so on. So this ecological efficiency is this transfer efficiency coming of the energy received from the level below and being given to the level above. Why is it important? Basically, it gives you a good sense of why several things become very important, like eating at the lowest level of the trophic chain. What does that mean? It means eating vegetarian food is much more energetically efficient than eating meat. Okay, we'll see that in various ways. So here is, let's say, producer is a phytoplankton. Then it's being eaten by herbivores, and they are producing feces, and they are assimilated by herbivores and being respired. So there is a herbivore mass that is being wasting the energy it got as feces, wasting, or it depends, and is energy assimilated into the herbivores, which is made available to the next trophic level, but herbivores respire, and so increased mass through growth and reproduction. So for example, let's say we eat chicken. Chicken is starting as an egg, it is hatched, we feed it, it grows, assimilates energy, and then increases mass through growth and reproduction, can die uneaten or get consumed by the carnivore. Essentially what it is saying is that the amount of food to be produced at the bottom of the food chain has to be much, much, much larger than what is being made available to somebody sitting at the top of the trophic levels. Okay, so here some carnivore is sitting here and the producer is here. You can see the relative size of the phytoplankton biomass has to be much larger than what is being eaten by this carnivore, because in the middle there is loss as feces through respiration and just dying and dropping out. For example, we wouldn't eat rotten chicken. Rotten chicken is thrown away. We only eat fresh chicken that has been cut and frozen or whatever. I don't know. Imagine some analogy which tells you what dying uneaten means, right? Okay? Fish, for example. So that's the basic concept of trophic levels. We will see more about it as we go forward, because we have to figure out just how much energy is being lost along the way, and how much energy is involved at the production level before it reaches the top predator by going through various trophic levels.